Hello, everyone. So, today, let me discuss to you the law of conservation of momentum and also derive, the law of conservation of momentum. So, to derive the law of conservation of momentum step by step, so we should start with the Newton's laws and build up logically. So, we will be starting with uh, the famous Newton's laws, which we all know, right? And from there, we will derive the law of conservation of momentum step by step. So again, the question is, what is a momentum? What do you think a momentum is? What is a momentum? A momentum, or P, small p, is given by this formula. So this is the formula for the momentum. Small p is equal to m times the v, right? The mass and a velocity. The momentum is equal to the mass m times the velocity v. All right, so that is the formula for the momentum. So we now know how to compute for the momentum. We simply multiply the mass to the velocity, and that would be the momentum. So just memorize P is equal to M times V. So if the mass is in kilogram and the velocity is in, for example, in meters per second, and then you can have a vector. So a momentum is actually a vector, right? A momentum is a vector because it has a direction, of course, because of the velocity, right? So it has a corresponding direction. So if the velocity goes in that way, so there's a mass there, there's also a velocity going, therefore the momentum is actually going in that direction as well. So it is a vector, a momentum is a vector because it has a corresponding direction. Remember the formula? Mass times volume. So step number 2. What is Newton's second law? So step 2 is Newton's second law. All right. Newton actually stated his second law as, so this is the second law of Newton. So the second law of Newton states that delta P, the force, is equal to delta P over a delta T. So it means that the force is actually the rate of change of the momentum. So delta P is the change of the momentum. So according to Newton's second law, the force is equal to the change of the momentum, delta P, that's delta P, divided by the change of time, or the rate. And it's actually, when you do that, when you divide the momentum by the time, you are actually computing the rate of change. So the force is equal to the rate of change of the momentum. So the rate of change of the momentum. So from the equation above, we also know, this one we already know in the previous, page, that the momentum is equal to mass times the velocity. So if the mass is constant, the delta P is equal to mass times delta V, right? So if the momentum is constant, so if the mass is constant, then the change of P would be equal to mass constant, and of course the velocity, a change of velocity. All right. And if we will now apply and combine these two equations, we will combine the equation of the second law of Newton to this new one. So we can then substitute. So the force then would become mass, all right, times, see? All right, so we simply substitute. So from here, we will use this one, right? And put it back here on the first. So what happens is, so this is actually what we have. So the force would be mass times the change of the momentum over time, right? So we simply combine the first, the formula of the momentum and the second law of Newton, right? So we have this formula of force is equal to the mass times the change of the velocity over change of the time. All right. But we know that velocity over time is actually equal to acceleration. So here we have velocity over time, change of velocity over change of time. But velocity over time is actually an acceleration. We know that formula already, right? We know that formula that acceleration is velocity over time. That is acceleration. So if we will have this one, if this is our formula, the force is equal to mass times change of velocity over change of time, we can substitute Vt by ma, right? We can change Va by ma, right? So from here, so if you have that force, this is our formula, we can substitute V over T by A, or is equal to M times acceleration, right? So we change it, right? So now if we go to the Newton's third law, Newton's third law says that for any two objects interacting, there is always an equal magnitude in the opposite direction, right? So if there is a force that goes in one direction, there is always an equivalent force that goes into the other direction, right? So forces are equal in magnitude, but they are opposite in direction. That is the Newton's third law. So if there is a force that goes there, there is another force that counteracts into the opposite direction with the same magnitude, the same value of the force, but in the different direction. So that is the Newton's third law. So if we have a force A on B, we have also a negative force B on A, right? But in this case, it's negative. Remember, look at the direction. So the first force A on B is positive, but the B on A would be negative. So the same value of force, but in the opposite direction. Now, if we will combine them for two objects in a collision, right? Consider two objects colliding with no outside forces or isolated objects. During the collision, they exert forces on each other. So for object A, so this is the force on object A. So the force on object A, according to the law that we already learned above, the change of the momentum over the change of time, right? And there's another object B, so FA on B. So as you can see, the change of PB over change of time, all right? But according to the law of motion, they must be equal. These two must be equal, but in opposite direction. So FB on A must be equal to FA of A, but negative. The other is negative. It must be in the opposite direction. All right? So we have here, so this is one of the force. That's one of the force. It is equal to the other force, but acting in the opposite direction. That is why it is negative. And so in step 5, we can cancel out delta t, right? So since we equated this one, we can cancel out delta t because they are actually, now we can cancel out both delta t. So what is left is delta momentum on A and the delta momentum on B, negative. That means that the change of the momentum in A is actually equal to the change of the momentum in B, but negative. The change of the momentum of A, again, the change of the momentum of A is equal to the change of the momentum of B, but negative sign. No? Negative. That means in the opposite direction. So it counteracts the other force. Or you can also rearrange it if you want. If you don't like this problem, you can also rearrange it like this. Equate both to 0, right? You put this one to the other side, it becomes positive. So it is positive here, and then equate both to 0. So you have now the two forces equated to 0. So it means that the total change of the momentum in the system is A plus B is 0. So A plus B is 0. That's the total change in the momentum in the system is 0. So A plus B equal to 0. So the total change of momentum is 0. Then the total momentum before must be equal to the total momentum after, right? So if that is the case, if the total change of the momentum is actually 0, then the total momentum before would be equal to the total of momentum afterwards. Or here, as you can see, the total, the momentum initial on A plus momentum initial on B is equal to the momentum initial final and the final, right? So these are all initial momentums of A and B equal to the final uh, momentum of A and B. And that is the law of the conservation of momentum, right? That in an isolated system with no outside force, the total momentum is constant. All right, so we actually derive the law of conservation of momentum, right? That when there are no outside forces involved in an isolated system, the total momentum is actually constant. All right. All right. So that is now the law of conservation of momentum. So maybe we could have specific problems on the conservation of momentum later on. So please give me a follow. Don't forget to subscribe. All right. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you around and I'll see you in the next video. All right. Thank you.